What happens when a respected woman's secret desire collides with forbidden territory? In May 2011, one phone call to Manila police would expose a hidden romance that turned a quiet Quezon City neighborhood into a crime scene. She was 42, he was 19. And what started as stolen glances over a garden fence would end with a body on a terrace floor. But was it passion? Or was it something far darker? The rain fell heavily that night, masking the tension that had been building for months. In a modest Quezon City neighborhood, a forbidden connection had taken root between a married woman in her early 40s and a young man barely out of his teens. Their meetings were secret, their conversations hushed, but their chemistry undeniable. Neighbors spoke of late-night whispers and hurried footsteps of a woman who seemed to glow with a new unsettling energy. But no one suspected that behind the closed doors of her home, a tragedy was unfolding. One evening, a neighbor, concerned by the unusual silence, called the police. What they discovered inside was a scene that would haunt the community forever. A body lay lifeless on the terrace floor. A chilling testament to a love that had crossed the line from passion to peril. The investigation revealed a tangled web of emotions, secrets, and lies. The woman, once a figure of respectability, had been living a double life, one that ultimately led to her demise. As the police delved deeper, the community was left to grapple with the shocking reality. A love affair had ended in murder, but the questions remained. Was it a crime of passion, or was there something more sinister at play? Stay tuned as we uncover the details of this tragic tale, piecing together the events that led to a life lost and a community forever changed. Meet Rosa Vueeva, a 42-year-old woman whose life seems like a dream from the outside. A beautiful house in an exclusive Quezon City village. Designer bags, luxury cars, everything a woman could ask for. But for Rosa, those material comforts are nothing more than an empty shell. Rosa's world is one of quiet isolation. Married for 15 years to Vicente Vueeva, a wealthy shipping company executive, her life should have been the epitome of success. Yet, despite their opulent lifestyle, her marriage has remained childless, and her husband's frequent international travels have only made her loneliness more apparent. Behind the beauty of her Spanish-Filipino heritage and former beauty queen title lies a woman whose emotional needs have been ignored. She's surrounded by staff, but none can fill the emptiness that grows inside her. The house, though grand, is a silent prison. The silence of her home is deafening. The echoes of her own footsteps are the only sound that accompany her as she moves from room to room, passing mirrors, without ever truly seeing herself. No one to share her evenings, no one to fill the space beside her. Rosa's longing for something more has been buried beneath layers of wealth and a perfect facade. But as the days pass, the cracks in her world grow wider, and she begins to wonder. Can she keep living this empty life, or will she seek something or someone to fill the void? Meet Diego Fernandez. At 19, he's a college student with dreams as big as his drive. Son of Rosa's neighbors, Gregorio and El Fernandez, Diego is the kind of young man who stands out both on the basketball court and in life. Athletic, hardworking, and studying engineering at the University of the Philippines. He's been raised with a sense of purpose. Diego's world is a far cry from Rosa's luxury. He's home for the summer break, taking a short respite from the pressures of university life and the financial struggles that come with it. Juggling a part-time job at a local coffee shop and the weight of his ambitions, he has the world ahead of him, but no easy path to walk. Though Diego has spent his whole life next door to Rosa, it's only now as a young man that she begins to see him in a new light. It's been years since she's noticed him. But in April 2011, that all changes. It begins with a simple gesture. Diego helping Rosa with her groceries. Their hands brush. A spark of connection passes between them. For a moment, their eyes lock. A long, lingering gaze that says more than words ever could. Rosa feels something shift within her. A feeling she hasn't experienced in years. For Diego, it's a fleeting moment, just part of his routine. But for Rosa, something stirs deep within. A desire that has been dormant for far too long. What starts as a simple act of kindness soon turns into something neither of them can ignore. It's April 18, 2011. Late afternoon. Rosa finds herself alone once again by the pool. The stillness of the water reflecting her growing isolation. But today, something is different. Diego approaches her property, holding a small, frightened cat that has wandered onto her lawn. He's come to return a lost cat. But what happens next will set in motion a series of events neither of them could foresee. As they stand there exchanging pleasantries, the conversation shifts to something deeper. Diego begins to speak of his dreams, his aspirations, his struggles with finances. Rosa, her loneliness palpable, listens intently. She senses something in him, something that resonates with the void inside her. As the words flow between them, Rosa makes a decision, one that will change everything. She offers Diego money for odd jobs around the house. It's casual, harmless on the surface, but the underlying tension is unmistakable. A gesture of generosity or something more, but as the two exchange pleasantries, Rosa is unaware of the eyes watching them from the window. Alan Consuelo, a neighbor with sharp eyes and a tendency for gossip, stands in the shadows. Her suspicion is immediate. What was just a simple interaction is already the talk of the neighborhood. And little does Rosa know. Alan Consuelo's watchful gaze will soon unravel everything. The spark has been ignited, and the course of Rosa and Diego's lives has changed forever. But in the shadows, others are already starting to notice. What happens next will set off a chain of events that neither Rosa nor Diego could have predicted. It's April 25, 2011. Vicente, Rosa's husband, leaves for a 3-week business trip to Singapore. A trip that will unwittingly give Rosa the time she never knew she needed to confront the desires she's been suppressing. The house is silent once more, its emptiness echoing through every room, but it won't stay quiet for long. Diego arrives, ready to tackle the broken air conditioning unit that has been a source of discomfort during the sweltering heat. The storm outside begins to build. The sky darkening as thunder cracks. It's almost as if the weather is mirroring the tension brewing between them. The power fails and the house is plunged into candle-lit darkness. The air grows thick with the smell of rain and sweat. The only light coming from the flickering flames in the stillness. Rosa and Diego find themselves closer than ever. Their conversation shifts from the mundane to the personal. It's a small moment, but it's one that reveals the cracks in their carefully constructed lives. They talk about their dreams, their fears. Rosa, vulnerable in the quiet darkness, speaks of her loneliness, of the yearning she's kept buried for years. They both know this is wrong. They both understand the consequences. But in that moment, the world outside disappears. The rain drums against the windows. The thunder covers their silence and the distance between them shrinks. And then, without warning, Rosa leans in. Her lips Meet his tentative at first, then with growing intensity. Diego hesitates for a fraction of a second before he responds. The taste of her forbidden kiss searing into his memory. In the darkness with the storm raging outside, they both know they've crossed a line. A line that cannot be undone. The kiss is not just a spark. It's the beginning of something neither of them can control. The internal conflict rages within them. Both are aware of the consequences, but neither can pull away. In that brief moment, boundaries have been shattered, and they stand at the edge of something they can no longer deny. As the days turn into weeks, the pattern becomes clear: secret meetings, texts coded with innocent-sounding phrases like, "The garden needs watering," and a back gate that has become a silent doorway for Diego's arrival. Vicente's absence allows them to slip deeper into the shadows of their forbidden world. Rosa pays Diego more and more for household help. The cash is not the real payment, though. It's the attention, the stolen moments, the thrill of knowing their desire is dangerous. Rosa, caught in the intoxicating grip of obsession, begins buying Diego expensive gifts. Designer watches, sneakers, things that stand out against his modest lifestyle. It's as if with every gift she's trying to seal him to her, to make him hers in a way that goes beyond just a physical connection. Diego, once uncertain, is now conflicted. He feels the rush of being wanted, of being seen. But he also feels the weight of guilt toward his parents. Toward his own values, the danger, the secrecy. It all feeds a darker side of him, but he can't pull away. The danger intensifies. Daytime encounters become more frequent. Their visits longer. Each stolen moment feels like a gamble, but neither can resist. Their addiction to the thrill of being caught, to the validation of their own desires, pulls them deeper into a reckless spiral. Rosa, trapped in a suffocating marriage, starts seeing Diego not just as a lover, but as an escape, a way out of a life that has left her hollow. Diego, on the other hand, feels powerful, desired, but he can't shake the feeling that he's being used. They are both addicted to the danger, to the thrill of crossing lines. But the deeper they fall, the harder it becomes to stop. The lies pile up, the tension mounts, and neither of them can escape the truth that they are both playing a game they can't win. June 12, 2011, Philippine Independence Day. The neighborhood fiesta is in full swing. A celebration of tradition, community, and pride. But for Rosa and Diego, the day is anything but carefree. Their glances across the crowd are too obvious. Their connection too palpable for anyone who's paying attention. The community gathers to celebrate, but amidst the laughter and chatter, something feels off. Rosa's and Diego's glances are too obvious. It's a dangerous game they're playing, and the stakes are getting higher. Alan Consuelo, ever the watchful neighbor, begins to notice the signs. The motorcycle parked discreetly behind Rosa's property, something she hadn't seen before. The late-night departures, the way Diego slips out of Rosa's house at 11 p.m., barely noticed in the quiet of the night. And then one evening, as the last guests filter out of the fiesta, she sees them. Rosa and Diego, standing too close, their bodies almost touching at the garden gate. The suspicion that has been slowly building inside her explodes into certainty. Alan Consuelo doesn't need to see more. She knows. The whispers begin almost immediately. At church, at the market, at the beauty salon, wherever people gather, the whispers grow louder. Nikita. See Diego, I saw Diego. Speculation runs wild. May Nagiari. Something's happening. The quiet secrets that Rosa and Diego thought they could keep hidden have begun to unravel. And once the whispers start, there's no turning back. The community may not have the full story, but they're already beginning to paint a picture. One that's bound to expose everything. Rosa Fernandez, Diego's mother, has begun to notice the changes in her son. The expensive watch, the new shoes, things he could never afford on his own. Her instincts tell her something isn't right. And so she questions him. Where are you getting the money for these? She asks, her voice filled with concern. Diego stammers, his mind racing. He lies, the words coming easily. Extra tutoring jobs, he says. Tips from the coffee shop. But LSE isn't convinced. LSE's doubt is the first crack in the foundation. And it won't be long before it leads to something bigger. Then the unexpected happens. A text from Vicente. He's coming home in 2 days. Rosa's world shifts in an instant. The fragile bubble she's created with Diego is about to burst. Rosa tells Diego they need to pause, that it's too risky now with Vicente's early return. Her voice shakes. With panic, the calm facade she so carefully built slipping away. Diego protests, his words raw and full of frustration. You can't just use me then. Throw me away. He snaps, the emotional weight of the situation boiling over. His pride, wounded and raw, surfaces in that moment. He's tired of being the one left behind, of being a secret. Rosa realizes something she hadn't expected. Diego has become attached, maybe even dependent on her. What started as a forbidden escape has now become something more, something that neither of them can control. But in the heat of their argument, the truth hits them. Both. Diego understands now. Rosa never intended to leave Vicente. She has used him, and all he has been to her is a brief, exciting distraction. Their first real argument erupts, harsh words cutting deep. Diego's pride is shattered. And Rosa, though conflicted, knows that things have shifted irreparably. The power dynamic between them has changed and neither is sure where it will go from here. Vicente is home. The quiet hum of normally is back in the Vueeva household. But it's anything but peaceful. Rosa, distant and distracted, goes through the motions of daily life. Her mind preoccupied by the storm brewing just outside her own home. Vicente, seemingly unaware of the underlying turmoil, announces another business trip. This time to Hong Kong, leaving on July 3rd. The words hang in the air like a lifeline, giving Rosa a brief reprieve from her ever-growing sense of impending disaster. For Rosa, Vicente's departure feels like both a reprieve and a curse. Another 3 weeks of space. But how much longer can she keep up the facade? Diego's message arrives late, his demand clear. They need to talk. Rosa hesitates, feeling a tight knot form in her stomach. She knows what's coming, but she can't bring herself to stop it. With a deep breath, she agrees. The conversation will come. But what exactly will Diego demand this time? She can feel the shift in him. The boy she once saw as a fleeting escape is now growing into something far more dangerous. Diego arrives and the weight of his presence is undeniable. He doesn't waste time. I need more, he says. This has to be public or his voice trails off, but the threat hangs in the air. Diego is no longer the naive boy who stumbled into her life. He's demanding control. And with each passing moment, his grip tightens. He's not just asking for more. He's giving her an ultimatum. Rosa realizes with a sickening clarity that she's lost control. Diego is no longer her escape. He's her captor, and she's trapped in the very world she once sought to escape. The stakes have escalated, and this game is no longer something she can manage alone. With Diego's ultimatum hanging in the air, Rosa is faced with an impossible choice. Does she give in and risk losing everything? Or does she find a way to break free from this dangerous web she spun? July 2, 2011. The night feels suffocating, thick with anticipation. On Rosa's terrace, the world outside seems to hold its breath, waiting for what's about to unfold. What started as a secret, thrilling escape is now teetering on the edge of destruction. Diego's arrival is not one of longing or desire, but fury. The boy who once looked up to Rosa with admiration now stands before her. His feelings twisted into something darker. The words hit Diego like a slap, shattering the image he's held of their relationship. He stares at her, disbelief turning to searing rage. The offer is chilling in its cold practicality, as if she believes money can erase the mess they've made. But Diego's rage only deepens. Diego's pride, already shattered, erupts in fury. He no longer wants money. He wants more. He wants answers. The confrontation escalates in an instant. Diego, unable to control his emotions, grabs Rosa's arm, pulling her toward him. The struggle is raw, desperate. Rosa's fear flickers across her face for a split second. Her slap, a desperate attempt to regain control, only sends Diego into a frenzy. In his rage, he pushes her away harder than she expected. The push sends Rosa off balance. Her hands grasp wildly for something, anything. But the ground beneath her feet is slick, and there's nothing to stop her fall. In a heartbeat, everything changes. Rosa loses her grip, her body tilting dangerously. The railing that should have held her is now just a distant memory. Diego's voice is a strangled scream, but it's too late. His attempt to save her comes in vain. A final, desperate effort that couldn't defy gravity. The silence that follows is deafening. No one is there to hear her fall, to witness the final fatal moment. Just the sound of cicadas, the humid air, and the sickening thud of a life lost. And in that moment, everything ends. The life that had once burned so brightly with passion now lies broken, shattered on the cold, unforgiving ground below. For a moment, Diego is paralyzed. His mind refusing to process the catastrophe unfolding before him. The fall Rosa's body. Everything is too much to bear. His heart races, pounding in his chest as the truth sinks in. He runs, each step dragging him closer to the body he's created. The blood on the concrete is a cruel reminder of the fall. The fall that will haunt him forever. Rosa's eyes are open, but there is no life behind them. Only the cold, empty gaze of someone who has been taken too soon. A decision is made in a flash. Panic, fear, and self-preservation overpower reason. Diego knows that staying would mean facing the consequences, but fleeing means a chance to escape, to vanish into the night. In his panic, Diego does the unthinkable. He climbs over the gate, retrieves his motorcycle, and rides off into the night. His hands shake as he grips the handlebars, the engine roaring beneath him, but it does nothing to calm the storm inside. Home, but not really home. Diego enters his room, his body shaking from adrenaline, his mind clouded with guilt. He sits on his bed, staring blankly at the walls, unable to reconcile the actions that led him here. The silence of the morning is broken by a scream. The helpers. Discovery of Rosa's lifeless body on the concrete below shatters the calm of the house. The blood, the coldness of Rosa's body, it's impossible to ignore. The scream reaches Vicente's ears, pulling him from his sleep in a disoriented haze. His body moves without thought, rushing down the stairs to find the source of the panic. But nothing could have prepared him for the sight that greets him. Vicente stands frozen in the doorway, his mind struggling to comprehend the impossible. His wife dead, his world once filled with the comforts of wealth and routine, now reduced to chaos and grief. Frantic and grief-stricken, Vicente calls for help. His voice is barely a whisper, choked with emotion as he pleads for someone to come to make sense of this nightmare. But the sound of the sirens growing nearer is the only thing that follows. The sirens wail in the distance, but by the time help arrives, it's too late. Rosa's fate is sealed, and with it, the lives of those involved are forever changed. The investigation begins, but the questions, those will linger long after the first responders leave. What was once a life full of promise, passion, and secrecy has now ended in violence. And for Diego, Vicente, and everyone connected to Rosa, the aftermath will be the beginning of a journey no one is prepared for. Detective Rafael Domingo, a seasoned investigator with years of experience, is the lead on this case. The crime scene, a second-floor terrace, dimly lit by the early morning light, appears at first glance to be a tragic accident. A slip perhaps, but Domingo's instincts tell him there's more to this than meets the eye. At first, the scene suggests an accident. Slipped on the wet terrace tiles, perhaps in the midst of an argument. But as Domingo's keen eyes survey the area, inconsistencies begin to emerge. Bruising on Rosa's arms points to a struggle, not a slip. Defensive wounds mar her hands, indicating she tried to fight back against something or someone. The pieces of the puzzle are starting to fall into place. The phone, now shattered, tells a story of its own. It's not just a casualty of the fall. Its destruction seems deliberate, a part of the struggle. The evidence is mounting, and it's becoming clear that this is no mere accident. Vicente Vueeva, Rosa's husband, is next on the list of interviews. His alibi appears solid. He was asleep in their bedroom with the helpers confirming his whereabouts. He's devastated, but there's something in his demeanor that suggests more than just the shock of loss. Vicente's alibi is solid. No inconsistencies, no direct connection to the crime. But his emotional state, though genuine, feels detached at times, as if he's keeping something locked inside. Vicente's cooperation is undeniable, but the cracks in his story linger. Could the troubled marriage have been more than just emotional distance? Could his grief be masking something darker? As the investigation widens, the neighborhood canvas begins. Alan Consuelo, the ever-watchful neighbor, steps forward with her observations. She's seen Diego at the Vanua property more than once, and she's more than willing to share her thoughts. Other neighbors confirm a suspicious pattern. Diego's presence at the property, though it was explained away as household help, begins to look far less innocent. His visits are more frequent, more calculated. The lines between neighborly favors and something more sinister are becoming increasingly blurred. The community has spoken, and the whispers that have been circulating are starting to match the evidence. Diego, a young man with a growing attachment to Rosa, is now at the center of suspicion. With each passing hour, The walls close in. Diego's involvement is no longer a question of suspicion. It's now a matter of proving just how far he was willing to go. July 6, 2011, Diego's behavior has become erratic. Nervous, avoiding his family. He can't eat or sleep. Every noise sends him into a panic. The weight of what he's done is starting to crush him. But it's a weight he can't shake. The guilt, the fear of discovery, and the pressure of the investigation are taking their toll. The anxiety is palpable. Diego's once confident demeanor is gone, replaced by a shadow of himself. The reality of the situation is starting to sink in. His escape, once a thought, is now an unbearable weight on his shoulders. Diego is brought in for questioning. He knows the moment has come. The questions he has been dreading are now unavoidable. His alibi is weak. An attempt to mask the truth with a story that doesn't quite hold up. Detective Domingo listens closely, his eyes narrowing as Diego's words falter. Diego's story doesn't add up. His nervousness, his evasiveness, all are signs of someone who is struggling to maintain control of a lie. The mounting evidence doesn't help Diego's case. Text messages recovered from Rosa's phone reveal more than just casual exchanges. They paint a picture of a secret relationship, one that has spiraled out of control. Diego's fingerprints are found on the terrace railing, the same railing that Rosa fell from. It's a direct link to the scene of the crime. And it's one more piece of evidence that ties him to the death of his lover. CCTV footage from a nearby house shows a motorcycle that matches Diego's parked near the Vueeva property that night. The evidence is piling up and the net is closing in on him. And then a break-in. The case, a partial confession from one of Diego's friends. Under pressure, he admits that Diego called him that night, saying only something terrible happened. The friend's statement is the missing piece. It confirms what was once just suspicion that Diego was involved, that he knew the gravity of what had happened, even if he didn't admit it to anyone else. The pieces are all in place. Diego's lies, the evidence, the phone calls, everything is now pointing in one direction. The truth is out there, and Diego's attempt to hide it is unraveling faster than he can keep up. July 10, 2011. The moment arrives. Diego is arrested at his family home. The very place where he once felt safe. The life he once knew, filled with normal routines and quiet mornings, is shattered in an instant. Rosa Fernandez's world crumbles in front of her eyes. Her son, the boy she raised with love, is now the man who stands accused of murder. Her scream pierces the morning air. Every mother's nightmare realized. Gregorio Fernandez, too, is consumed by shock and shame. He stands frozen, unable to comprehend the actions of his son. This is not the boy he raised. This is not the life they envisioned. Diego is charged with homicide. The weight of the accusation hanging heavily over him. The life he once knew, built on deception and lies, is now crumbling before his eyes. The scandal explodes across the neighborhood. What was once quiet gossip behind closed doors, is now out in the open, and the streets hum with shock and disbelief. The whispers grow louder. Affair ends in death. Diego Fernandez, the boy next door, has been charged with homicide. What was once a quiet affair between Rosa and Diego is now the headline of every conversation. The community is torn. The line between sympathy and judgment razor thin. The fallout is swift and unforgiving. For Vicente Vueeva, the humiliation is as public as it is brutal. His wife dead, his reputation shattered, and now the boy who was once considered a part of the family. The same boy who betrayed his trust, has been charged with her murder. The Fernandez family, once respected in the community, is now an outcast. Their reputation is forever marred by the actions of their son, and the shame they carry is a burden that will follow them for years to come. And just like that, everything changes. The affair, the lies, the death, they all collide, leaving behind a wake of destruction. For Diego, the future is uncertain. For the Fernandez family, nothing will ever be the same. October 2011 to January 2012. The stage is set for a trial that will captivate the community. In the courtroom, the battle for justice unfolds. A battle between the truth and the carefully crafted narratives each side presents. Diego Fernandez, once a young man with a promising future, now stands accused of the brutal killing of Rosa Vueeva. Prosecutor Emilia Ramos leads the charge for the state determined to paint Diego as an opportunistic predator. Her case focuses on the glaring age gap between Diego and Rosa, emphasizing the power imbalance that she argues led to Rosa's demise. Forensic experts testify about the bruising found on Rosa's arms and the defensive wounds on her hands. The trajectory of her fall is consistent with a push, not a slip. The prosecution argues that this was no accident. Rosa's death was the result of intentional violence. Vicente's testimony is heartbreaking, revealing the deep emotional distance in his marriage to Rosa. His words hint at the failures of their relationship, but he insists that there was no violence. The death of his wife has left him devastated, but also questioning how far things had gone between Rosa and Diego. Alan Consul's observations add weight to the prosecution's case. Her testimony paints Diego as a frequent presence in the Vueeva home, often at odd hours, which makes his claim of innocence more difficult to believe. The forensic analysis and the text message evidence paint a clear picture of a secret affair, one that escalated into violence when the pressure became too much for Diego to handle. The defense, led by attorney Rayon Cruz, seeks to portray Diego as a victim, manipulated by the older Rosa, who pursued him for the excitement of an affair. Cruz argues that Diego was never the aggressor, but rather a young man caught in a situation that spiraled out of his control. The defense attempts to frame the death as a moment of heat and frustration, a reflexive push gone wrong, but the prosecution has already presented a strong case, and the jury is left to decide which version of events is closer to the truth. Diego's testimony is raw, filled with guilt and regret. His words betray his feelings. He admits to the affair, but his remorse is clear. He claims the push was unintentional. A moment of anger during an argument that spiraled out of control. In his testimony, Diego shows a level of remorse that seems genuine. But will it be enough to convince the jury? Or will they see a young man who allowed his feelings of betrayal and confusion to lead him down a dark path? Elle's plea for mercy is a mother's cry for her child. The grief and guilt in her voice echoing throughout the courtroom. The community has already judged Diego, but his mother, clinging to the belief that her son is not the villain, desperately seeks to soften the blow. The community is divided. Some see a young man who was manipulated. Others see a murderer. The trial has torn open the wounds of the Vueeva and Fernandez families, leaving them exposed to the judgment of the world. As the trial continues, the echoes of the past linger, the affair, the betrayal, the tragedy. They have all left scars on everyone involved. But the true question remains, who will ultimately pay the price for Rosa's death? January 28, 2012. 3 days of deliberation have passed. each one heavy with the weight of what is about to unfold. The jury has reached a decision. And now it is time for the court to hear the verdict. The words cut through the air, a mixture of relief and sorrow, washing over the room. It is not the murder charge the prosecution sought, but it is still a conviction that will forever change Diego's life. 12 years, a sentence that will mark the rest of Diego's life. It is not the life sentence many had expected, but for Diego, the punishment is still severe. It will not undo the damage, the death of Rosa or the broken families left in its wake. Lse Fernandez, her heart shattered, collapses in the courtroom. Her son, the boy she loved, is now a convicted criminal. The weight of the sentence is too much for her to bear. Her tears are a mother's final plea, unanswered. Vicente walks out silently, his heart heavy with humiliation and loss. He has lost his wife, his trust, and now his sense of normality. The trial has torn apart his family, and the consequences of the affair and the death of his wife will haunt him for the rest of his life. Diego, once full of promise, now stands before the world broken and lost. His tears flow freely, but they are not enough to erase the reality of what he has done. He has been convicted of homicide, and as he is led away, the weight of his actions is all he has left. The verdict is final, but the aftermath is far from over. For Diego, for the Vueevas, for the Fernandez family, life will never be the same. The price of the affair of betrayal and of violence is one that they will all pay for years to come. And as the gavel falls, so too does the final chapter of a tragedy that began with passion but ended in heartbreak. March 2012 and beyond. Vicente's journey is one of quiet reflection and painful change. The house he once shared with Rosa, filled with too many painful memories, is sold. A new chapter begins in Cebu, far from the life he once knew. In Cebu, Vicente struggles with guilt. He questions himself. If I had been present, the what-ifs plague him, but he is left with nothing but the hollow feeling of a man who lost everything. His life, once defined by his marriage and success, now revolves around regret. Vicente never remarries. He carries the weight of his past with him. A man forever marked by the tragedy that tore his life apart. The Fernandez family too is broken. Lse becomes a recluse, unable to face the world. The shame of her son's actions consumes her. Her once vibrant spirit fading into isolation. Gregorio, once a respected man in the community, is forced to find new work. His reputation destroyed by his son's crimes. In an effort to escape the stigma, the Fernandez family moves to a new city, hoping to rebuild in anonymity. But no matter where they go, the past follows them. They visit Diego monthly in prison. Their love for their son, undiminished by his actions. Their lives are marked by the scandal, and nothing will ever be the same. In prison, Diego ages rapidly. The carefree young man who once dreamed of a different life is now a shadow of himself. His face, once full of hope and ambition, is now etched with the sorrow of a man who has seen his future disappear. In his interviews, Diego expresses remorse, but it is too little, too late. His actions, fueled by youth and misplaced emotions, have left an indelible mark on everyone involved. He is eligible for parole in 8 years, but whether he will ever truly be free of the weight of his crime remains uncertain. The community, too, is forever altered. The Vueeva and Fernandez families are forever linked to a scandal that will never be forgotten. The neighborhood, once close-knit, never recovers from the shock of what happened. The story of Rosa's death becomes a cautionary tale whispered about for years. Remember the Vueeva case? They ask the words floating in the air as if the scandal is still fresh. The gossip, the judgment, the pain. They live on a legacy of betrayal and violence that will continue to shape the lives of everyone involved. The aftermath of Rosa's death is far-reaching, touching everyone involved. For Vicente, for the Fernandez family, for Diego, and for the community, life moves forward, but nothing will ever be the same. The scars left by this tragedy will remain hidden, but always there. A reminder of the choices made and the lives lost. What began as forbidden attraction became a deadly obsession that destroyed multiple lives. A relationship fueled by loneliness, desire, and deception spiraled into violence, forever changing the lives of those involved. But who was truly the victim here? Was it Rosa, whose desire for escape led her into the arms of a younger man? Or was it Diego, a young man seeking validation who became ensnared in a dangerous game of passion and lies? Could this tragedy have been prevented? And what drives people to risk everything for fleeting passion? In the end, we see universal themes play out. The yearning for connection in a world of loneliness, the power imbalances in relationships, the consequences of hidden desires, and the fragility of reputation and life itself. This case forces us to confront the perilous line between seeking validation and the destruction that can follow when boundaries are crossed. In the end, Rosa sought escape from emptiness. Diego sought worth, but in their pursuit of each other, they found only destruction. Lives were shattered, reputations tarnished, and nothing was left untouched by their choices. This case shocked Manila and exposed the dark side of forbidden desire. But it's nothing compared to the story of the teacher, whose affair with 3 students ended in a murder-suicide pact. If this story left you speechless, smash that like button. What do you think? Who was really at fault here? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next shocking true crime case. For more devastating stories of love turned deadly, check out the video appearing on your screen right now. Because sometimes the most dangerous affairs aren't the ones that end, but the ones that go too.